When the streets of Paris flooded in 1910, construction workers found more than just mud and rubble. Deep in the city's underbelly, corridors unseen for centuries, arched vaults, and walls covered in strange symbols were exposed. An official explanation came swiftly. Roman-era remains. Newspapers ran a few lines, authorities locked down the site, and the records were filed away in archives. But a diary kept by one of those construction workers still sits in a private collection today, and in that diary, it reads, "What we saw was not Roman work. The walls were too smooth, the stones too large, and those passageways stretched toward the water." So where did those passageways lead? And why did no one ever ask? Now I'm going to leave you with a much deeper question. What if the structures found beneath Paris were not the last remnants of a single city, but of a vast civilization that once covered the entire world? Imagine a civilization with harbors, energy terminals, and trade networks stretching all the way to the ocean floor. And this civilization's name appears either as a tiny footnote in official history books, or not at all. That civilization's name, Tartaria. Most people, when they hear Tartaria, think of an old Central Asian state. But today we are not talking about the Tartaria you were taught. We are talking about the Tartaria you were never taught. Look at the 1570 Ortelius Atlas, one of history's greatest cartographic works. Tartaria represented not just the Siberian steppes, but a geography covering nearly the entire Asian continent. Even stranger, in maps drawn by Mercator and other Renaissance-era cartographers, Tartaria's borders constantly shifted, sometimes expanding, sometimes suddenly shrinking. Historians explain this as lack of knowledge. But was another possibility ever considered? What if those borders were deliberately blurred? And this is where we go down to the sea. Because the Tartaria question does not begin and end with land borders. The real secret is buried beneath the oceans. When you examine ancient nautical maps, particularly the Portolan charts, a strange pattern stands out. In certain areas of the Mediterranean, specific points along the Black Sea, and along the Atlantic coastline, harbor markings appear that no longer exist today. Think of Derinkuyu and the underground cities of Cappadocia. Official history described these as caves used by Christians as shelters. But the engineering effort behind these structures points to a massive organization requiring thousands of people working for years. Now carry that same question to the ocean floor. What if structures just as extraordinary exist beneath the sea beds? This is not speculation. Off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula at roughly 40 meters depth, the regularly arranged stone formations discovered in Bimini in 1968, known as the Bimini Road, remain a subject of debate to this day. The monumental underwater complex found off Japan's Yonaguni Island has been accepted as man-made by Japanese archaeologist Masaaki Kimura, yet the international academic community systematically ignores this finding. For the structures discovered in 2001 at the bottom of the Gulf of Khumbat, off India's Gujarat coast, the director of the National Institute of Ocean Technology at the time used the phrase, "City ruins 9,500 years old." The story stayed in the news for a few days, then vanished. Why? Because if these ruins are acknowledged, history must be rewritten. And it is not only history that would be rewritten, but the entire power structure built upon it. Let's move to Amsterdam. Amsterdam's canals are presented as the world's best preserved medieval water infrastructure. But during canal widening work at the start of the 20th century, workers discovered beneath the existing canals another network of waterways, parallel to them, but far wider and far older. Official archaeology examined these structures, reports were written, and those reports were stored in Amsterdam municipal archives. Today, accessing those reports requires special permission. Why would you keep an ordinary medieval water canal secret? Doesn't that strike you as strange? Let's run a thought experiment to grasp the scale of Tartaria. In the early 1800s, hundreds of buildings constructed in the same architectural style exist across the world. In Europe, North America, Russia, and even in regions considered remote and isolated today. The same columns, the same domes, the same proportions. Official history calls this classical architectural influence. But no one ever explains how this architecture spread across such a vast geography before the 1800s. Consider the tunnel networks discovered beneath San Francisco, exposed during the 1906 earthquake. The city's official history traces back to the gold rush of 1849, meaning the city should have no history older than 50 years. So how are these tunnels here? Who dug them and why? How is any of this even possible? The answer takes shape when you look not just at Tartaria's land infrastructure, but at its maritime infrastructure. If Tartaria truly possessed a worldwide power grid, and the research seems to suggest exactly that, then the most critical nodes of that grid were not on land, but on water. Because throughout history, all great powers have been powers that control the sea. And if Tartaria established that maritime dominance through underwater harbors and energy terminals, what was the easiest way to destroy those structures? Leave them beneath the waves. Because the ocean covers everything, and archaeologists cannot dig into the ocean floor. Think of Tesla's energy facilities built at Niagara Falls in the late 19th century. You remember, don't you? Tesla was not just converting the kinetic energy of water into electricity. He was trying to transmit that energy wirelessly. We say this technology emerged in the 1900s. But what if someone discovered this connection far earlier? Is it really a coincidence that ancient structures are so densely concentrated at straits, near waterfalls, and along coastlines with powerful currents? Tartaria's underwater harbors were not merely docking points for ships. They were terminals powered by the infinite energy of water. Trade and energy converged at a single point. And then came the Great Reset. The years 1815 to 1816 represent one of history's most mysterious periods. During this year without a summer, triggered by the eruption of Mount Tambora yet spreading across the entire northern hemisphere in ways that cannot be explained, crops rotted, livestock perished, and people vanished by the masses. But was it really just a volcano? Some researchers claim that records from that era show atmospheric disruptions beginning before the eruption. If a truly global catastrophe unfolded during that period, and if that catastrophe was not only atmospheric but geographical, meaning coastlines sank, harbors were swallowed by the ocean, waterways were buried under mud, then Tartaria's entire maritime infrastructure was lost beneath history in a single disaster. This is precisely where the Mudflood theory enters the picture. Across the world, there are images showing first floors and basements buried underground. The official explanation for these is soil accumulation over time. But accumulation this fast and this uniform cannot be explained by geological processes, because it is impossible. And at that point, one must ask, if all this infrastructure truly existed, why do we find no trace of it today? The answer is simple, yet chilling. We do find traces. They are simply being hidden from us. Did you know that the vast majority of books printed before the 1800s have either been burned, gone missing, or are now inaccessible in private collections? In the storage rooms of the world's great museums, thousands of uncatalogued artifacts sit untouched. At the Smithsonian Institution, only a small percentage of cataloged objects are ever displayed. The explanation given for the rest is insufficient storage space. But no answer is ever given to why these objects are not displayed, why they are not open to researchers, why they are closed off from public access. Because it doesn't serve their interests. They don't want people learning the truth. Go back to those corridors beneath Paris, those sealed waterways beneath Amsterdam's canals, those stone formations at the bottom of Bimini, and those underwater structures at Yonaguni. What do they all have in common? They are all close to water. Access to all of them has been shut down. And above all of them, the same word is written: unexplained. But being unexplained does not mean it never existed. Perhaps the greatest discoveries are still waiting, at the bottom of the ocean, beneath the mud of history, on the locked shelves of archives. And perhaps the person who will make those discoveries is you, watching this video right now. And as I always say, the truth surfaces sooner or later.